So in this video we're going to be talking about Athens and where it was coming from before it became an experiment in radical democracy. So one thing that's important about Athens is that they take themselves seriously, and their own attitude toward their origins and where they came from is a part of how we understand what it means to be an Athenian. The story of their origin having to do with the actions of a mythological demigod, Theseus, is a part of how the Athenians view themselves. It's not quite so unusual to associate your own origins with a legendary, larger-than-life character or hero. Many ancient peoples do this. The thing that's interesting about Theseus is that one of the reasons why the Theseus story is useful is what it accomplishes. The origins of Athens comes in the unification of all of Attica. So that the polis of Athens, unlike all of the other polis of the Greek world, includes not just the agricultural hinterland of Athens itself, but the entirety of the region to which it belongs, Attica, a vast territory that stretches a considerable distance in all directions. One measure of this is you'll notice the city of Marathon on the eastern side of Attica. The distance from Marathon to Athens is the distance of a marathon. This is where we get the term and where we get the measure of distance involved. This has a lot of effects for how Athens develops and the problems that Athens has in making itself into the powerful and indeed dominant polis within the Aegean world over the course of the 3 or 4 centuries leading up to the classical Athens. Every polis has at its heart a conflict between the few and the many, between the demos and the aristoi. This is true, of course, in Attica as an urban phenomenon, but it's given sort of literally an extra dimension because of the natural dichotomy between the rural poor and even middle class that are farming the lands of Attica, inland, and the sophisticated urban elites that are living in the built-up coastal areas in Athens and the surrounding territory. The political rivalries in Athens and the motivating tension are as much about the country people and the coastal people as it is about anything else, and this is in turn made more problematic by the fact that participation in any ancient assembly involves political participation as a citizen, involves the physical presence in the city itself. In order to participate in society and especially to participate politically, you have to be physically present in Athens. Or whatever place that you're talking about, and for most polis that means people coming in from the countryside. This is potentially an afternoon's journey or something like this, but for people that are living in the vast sprawling territory of Attica, this means that it's very difficult for the country people to enjoy their rights as citizens, to participate. This creates an imbalance politically in favor of the coastal people, who tend to be better off, tend to be representative of a higher class of society. And so from the very beginning, the unification of Attica as this enormous polis gives an advantage to the people at the top of society, to the aristoi, and the urban elite, that creates a vast amount of friction, a vast amount of tension that drives many of the mutations, the constant changes. If you ask yourself, why are there so many changes in Athens over the 6th and 5th century, this is one of the reasons, that there's this inherent conflict that is constantly motivating a desire to change and actions and reaction between the coastal and the country people. As Athens moves more and more toward a democracy, this imbalance is in some ways highlighted, because the franchise, once Athens becomes a radical democracy, the equal right to vote is inherently unequal because of the distance from the city, because of the built-up privileges that are accorded to the larger property owners and higher classes of people throughout Attica. So archaic Athenian society is made up of several groups of people. It's organized in certain ways. So because Athens is an Ionian or Eastern Greek city, they have 4 ancient tribes. These tend to be a tribe in any ancient city is going to usually be geographic. It's usually going to be regional, and it's usually going to connect people that are more or less related to each other. This is one of the things that that interferes with, that causes problems for the movement of Athens toward a unified polis, toward a centralized identity, because your identifications start out being with your family and your tribe, which is local, which tends to separate you from the other tribes, which tends to give you your own set of customs and traditions that get in the way of unification, get in the way of centralization of identity, get in the way of Synoicism. The Synoicism that Athens needs to experience is much, much greater than any other polis. It's a much greater hurdle for Athens to become a unified whole. And this means that its journey is so full of tribulation, so problematic. Within the tribes, the philae are the phratries. The phratry is not very well understood, but they are subdivisions of the individual tribes, and it's through your phratry that your citizenship is confirmed. And so this again is a local binding, an outward moving factor. This is a centrifugal factor that gets in the way of Athenian strength and unification. You have, at a more local level than this, you have the influence of clans, groups of related families. This is especially prevalent amongst the aristocracy. In other words, within the aristocracy, you have a number of clans that consist of important people, and the clans are in rivalry with each other and jockeying with each other for position. And then, within each clan is made up of the basic building block of Greek society, the oikos, the household that's made up of the head of the family and his immediate relatives, wives, children, and extensions, slaves and property, everything that is under the control of the eldest male of a family group. So all of these things are, the components of Athenian society. All of these things are things that are pulling people's identities and their sense of who they are away from the Athenian center. And so the story of Athens becoming what it is partly about the breaking down of these bonds and the way in which Athens has to move. It has to be away from its tendency to oligarchy. With the advent of the polis, throughout the Aegean world, throughout Hellas, one of the things that happens is that the basileus is replaced with annual elected magistrates. And these magistrates, have the duty of administering the city, and are part of the movement of the center of gravity away from the few and toward the many. However, the there are two factors that reinforce the control of the aristoi in Athens. One is that from the earliest centuries of Athenian history, the archons, the elected magistrates, can only come from certain clans at the very top of society. The second thing is that the most influential body in Athens is not the citizen assembly at the beginning in the archaic period. The most influential body is the Council of the Areopagus, which meets on the hill that we're looking at, the hill of Ares, which we're looking at here from the Athenian Acropolis. This body is sort of like a senate. It's made up of elders, and the way in which it's constituted is everybody who leaves office as an archon becomes a member of this council, the Areopagus. And so because the archons have to come from certain clans, from the most elite clans of Athens, the council is also made up only from members of the elite. And so this means that certain families at the top of society control the Athenian state during the archaic period. There are a number of efforts to bring about change and transformation. There are a number of rebellions against the aristocracy. One of these is famous, even though it's unsuccessful. Cylon is a famous Olympic athlete, very popular, a man of the people, an enemy of the aristocracy, a potential tyrant. He launches a rebellion that is designed to put himself in power at the expense of the aristoi. The rebellion is put down, but so what makes this problematic, what makes it notorious, is that Cylon is attached to a statue of Athena by a string in some way, and this string is broken. Megacles, the leader of the counter revolution, the archon that is putting down this rebellion, takes this as rejection by Athena and executes Cylon, even though the result of this is that Megacles is essentially executing somebody who had sought sanctuary with Athena, and this is interpreted by the people as blasphemy. And so Megacles gets painted with the opprobrium of Athena, and the dark cloud of this of the curse of this notorious action. It comes to haunt the clan that he belongs to, the Alcmaeonids. And the Alcmaeonids include a number of people that become politically prominent later on, including Cleisthenes and Pericles. Their enemies keep attempting to pull down the Alcmaeonids by constantly referring to this curse of Athena, this notorious act of Megacles. And so this serves as background radiation on all of the things that happen afterwards. The curse itself probably wasn't taken seriously. It's used as political mudslinging against Megacles and the clan that he belongs to by their enemies. The Alcmaeonids tend to be reformers, tend to be pro-democracy, and so this is used by the conservative elite against people like Cleisthenes and Pericles. One key moment in archaic Athens is the emergence of Draco, who takes control of Athens and is famous for establishing his code of law. What's remembered about the code of law is that it is notoriously harsh, and this is where we get our expression, draconian, as an adjective that describes very, very harsh punishments for crimes. But what's really important about Draco is that these laws have to do with conflicts between individuals and families that previously would have been taken care of privately. Conflicts of property, conflicts of marriage, conflicts involving, women and slaves and so forth and so on. These are the kinds of things that would be taken care of by heads of households in private arrangements, whenever there was, theft or injury or assault or threats or anything else like this. And this kept law and justice in a lot of instances at the private local level within the clan, and therefore kept things local, kept the power of the local and the clan and the tribe preeminent in identity. The fact that Draco is able to institute this code of laws brings a lot of conflict from the private realm into the public realm. It makes theft, assault, murder, and property conflicts and all of these other things that would have been taken care of privately, it makes them a matter of public concern. It makes the property and problems of families a public matter that is owned and judged by the people in general. And this is a very important stage in reducing the power of the local, in creating a central identity, in unifying the public sphere of Athens and Attica. And then we get to the stage of Solon. Solon is another reformist leader of Athens. He was most famous to the Athenians as a poet, and his writings, both about his political actions and about the natural world, many of them have come down to us. But the reforms of Solon are interesting because they are imposed on the Athenians, and the legend goes that he then departed from Athens so that he could not be prevailed upon to alter his own laws, and so the Athenians would therefore be stuck with them. This legend is more colorful than true, but it reflects what needs to happen at this stage. We have even more than with Draco, even more than with Theseus in a way, we have a lawgiver who is pushing Athens in a way that resolves conflicts that everybody is experiencing. And so Solon's reforms mutate Athens further, in retrospect, in the direction of democracy. But what's more important at the time is in the direction of a unified Athenian polis. So there's a very big problem with debt slavery, which alienated and also encumbered the poor. These include the peasants out in the countryside as well as the urban poor, and this was creating a huge burden. The exploitation that the rich were engaging in by charging high interest and then forcing debt slavery on the people that couldn't repay their debts was damaging the Athenian economy, and a lot of evidence shows that Solon's main concern was to force Athens to thrive economically by doing away with the social encumbrances that were getting in the way of economic success. Debt slavery had to go because it was preventing Athens from being a strong commercial power. Likewise, there are a number of agricultural and commercial reforms. Some of these include standardization, so that all throughout Attica and the places in which, increasingly, the places where Athens is trading, there are common, there are standardized weights and measures and this kind of thing that streamline trade and take away some of the problems inherent in people of different places trading with each other. As Athenian commercial and industrial volume increases, their ability to streamline trade of both manufactured goods and agricultural goods. The other thing, of course, is that Solon is looking to the future, preventing Athens from exporting grain, making sure that that Athens begins to put olives and grapes on an industrial footing, so that they can be used as cash crops for export of olive oil and wine. This is leveraging the agricultural base in a way that makes Athens a commercial hub, and making up for the fact that Attica, is not as agriculturally, fertile as it could be. The social reforms that Solon engages in are designed to improve Athens' ability to be strong socially and economically, and perhaps most important of this is the chasm between those belonging to the most important clans and everyone else is getting in the way of Athens functioning as a unified society. So he replaces the rules of participation with classes that are set up according to gradations of wealth. And so this emphasizes that the blood nobility is different from the rich. We often talk about the rich as if it were identical with the people of noble families, but there's a difference. If you make a number of classes of different gradations of wealth, that can allow people of a lower tier to have more participation in society and in politics than they might otherwise have had. But more to the point, wealth is something that is attainable. If your participation is according to wealth, wealth is something that can be achieved through diligent effort in commerce, and as a result, there is a possibility of upward mobility. There's a possibility of increasing your ability to participate in a society where there isn't a rigid distinction between families that can participate and families that are not. Rather, participation by class, by wealth-defined class, opens up the possibility for broader participation and for a more unified and just society. And we'll see how this continues to progress in the next video. And that's that.